Now that you know how to hold the hook in the yarn and you've been practicing making your chains, it's time to work a stitch into those chains. So let's get going with a single crochet now. Here I have some chains that I've already worked, and now it's time to work into those chains with single crochets. This loop next to my hook, the chain right here, is never worked into. So we're going to work in the second chain from the hook. Some people insert their hook under the top loop only, but I like to insert my hook under the top loop and the back bump. It makes for a stronger edge here and the chains don't get elongated. So after inserting my hook, I yarn over and pull up a loop. And there are 2 loops on the hook now. To finish the single crochet, I yarn over and pull through both loops. And this is the top of the stitch, and this is the bottom of the stitch. You can see this is the bottom loop of the chain that I worked into. So I don't want to put my hook into this chain again. I want to go to the next chain for my next stitch. So here's the top loop and the back bump. So I insert my hook there, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, and pull through both loops. Here's the top of my next stitch and the bottom of that stitch. So our next chain to work into is over here. We don't want to go in here and we don't want to skip that chain. So finding the correct chain to work into takes a little practice. So I've got my hook in under the top loop and the back bump. I will yarn over, pull up a loop. You notice when I do this that I'm pulling that loop onto the working area of the hook so that it makes it the right size. Then I yarn over and pull through both loops. And there's another single crochet. Let me do that a few more times. Here's my next chain. I'm going to go in right above that bottom loop, which means I'm going under the top loop and the back bump. I yarn over and pull up a loop. I have 2 loops on the hook. Yarn over and pull through both loops. One more time. Here's my next chain. I'm going under those 2 strands of the chain, yarn over and pull up a loop. Make sure it goes down here, because if it stays up here, it's going to be too tight to get this other loop through. So yarn over and draw through those 2 loops. Now let's count these single crochets. We count on the top. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And this is the bottom of the stitches. Now I'm going to work into these other 5 chains and I'll meet you at this end when I get there. Here I've gotten to the end of my first row, and let's count these stitches to make sure there's the right number. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And that's how many I should have. I started with 11 chains and we did not work into that first chain, so we have 1 less single crochet than the number of chains we start with. Now what do you do when you get to the end of a row? You need to start another row. So on single crochet rows, we do a chain 1 at the end of the row. So we'll just yarn over and pull through that loop, and that's our chain 1. And then we need to turn our work. So we're going to turn this just like it was a page in a book. We're going to turn just like this. And we're going to look for our first single crochet, but these look different now because this is the back of the single crochets. You notice they have kind of these little legs going like this. On the front of the stitches, it was more like this, looking at them, and we could see the 2 loops on the top of our stitches. Now on the back, we can't see those 2 loops anymore. So what's very helpful when you're learning to crochet is to rotate this a little bit towards you so you can see those 2 loops. This is the chain that we just chained, and we're not going to work into that. This is going to be our first stitch to work into. So just like we did with inserting our hook into the chains, we're going to insert it into the stitch. But instead of the top loop and the back bump, now we have the front loop and the back loop of the single crochet, the 2 top loops. And we insert our hook under both of those loops. We're going to yarn over just like before and pull up a loop just like before and slide it down a little bit. Then yarn over and pull through our 2 loops on the hook. So that's our first single crochet on our second row. This was our first row, and now it's time to do the second row. So we don't want to work into this stitch again because we already worked into it. We can see the bottom of our stitch is in here. So we're looking for our next stitch, and we can rotate it a little bit to find that stitch, put our hook under both loops, yarn over and pull up a loop, slide it down a little. We don't want it real tight here at the end because we'll never get the yarn through that again. So then we have 2 loops on the hook. We will yarn over and pull through those 2 loops. Let me do that a few more times. This is where I just worked, so I want to work in the next stitch. There's the 2 loops. To insert the hook in, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, and pull through 2 loops. You can see that I'm holding my work with my thumb and my middle finger, and that's why I said in the last video you needed to have your thumb and another finger free when you're holding your yarn. So if you need to reposition your yarn at any time, just go ahead and do that. I'm mostly holding the hook with my right hand, but I can grab onto this, my work, a little bit if I want to also. But then I'm holding my hook only. I find the next stitch, insert the hook, yarn over and pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through 2 loops. Now let me show you a little bit about tensioning your stitches. This stitch is a little looser than some of these, and what happens when you have a big top of your stitch is you happen to make this loop on the hook a little too big when you insert your hook, and I'm going to demonstrate that now. I'm going to make this big on purpose so you can see what happens. So I inserted my hook, I'm yarning over to pull up a loop, and then I can even pull this up really high and pull through both loops. Now look how much bigger this stitch is than the others. We don't want big stitches like that. We don't want them too big or too little. We want uniform stitches. So we go ahead and pull that stitch out, put our hook back in, and I always like to have the working yarn at the front of the hook. I don't like to put it in backwards because that could twist the top of the stitch. So I put the hook back in and I kind of snug up the yarn on the hook. I don't want this loop really big. So I'll insert the hook in the next stitch under both loops, yarn over and pull up a loop. I don't want to pull this real tall because that'll make the stitch too big. I want it just about the right size on here so that I can yarn over and pull through both loops. And this takes practice to get your stitches even, but I want you to keep practicing across your row, inserting your hook and pulling up a loop, yarning over and pulling through 2, and see how even you can get your single crochet stitches all the way to the end of the row. Let me do a few of them a little bit faster. Once you get more practice at making your stitches, you can start working faster. And at the end of my row, I have this front and back loop as my last stitch to work into. This was my first loop in the previous row, and this is the last stitch that I work into in this row. So we always want to make sure that we don't skip any stitches. Here is my second row completed, and let's count the stitches. I want you to count the stitches at the end of every row to make sure you have the same number of stitches in each row. So here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. This was my turning chain, and that's not a stitch. And you can see that there's the legs of the stitches down here. That's the front of these stitches. This is the back of the stitches on row 1. Now we're ready to start our third row. So what do? We do a chain 1 at the end of the row and turn our work like a page in a book and start the next row. We skip that chain and we work our first stitch under both loops of that first stitch. And we do that all the way across, ending with this stitch right here, which is the last stitch. And we'll have 10 single crochets again. Now that you've learned to do single crochet stitches, I want you to do lots of practicing. Work your rows of single crochet and chain 1 at the end of each row. Your goal is to make even stitches. You don't want some stitches loose and some stitches tight. I want to caution you on what you do while you're crocheting. If you're watching a movie that's scary or suspenseful, your stitches can get way too tight. And you don't want that because it's hard to insert your hook into those stitches later on. So just keep practicing, and pretty soon you'll have nice even stitches. Meet me in my next video where we'll be doing our first project, a single crochet coaster with rows of single crochet and an edging around it. I'll teach you how to work your rows, how to do the edging, how to finish off, and how to weave in the ends. So I'll see you in that next video. If you've enjoyed these videos, please subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching, and happy crocheting to all of you. Are we rolling?
Yep.
Did we ever stop?
Well, I just started again. So.
Oh, okay.